Everyone, if you're building an app, you probably have run into an issue at some point where you need to display, well, PDF files or some kind of document and even allow your users to edit them perhaps and export them. Basically, you have some kind of document workflow that you need to build into your app. So this is very common if you deal with contracts in your app or invoices or lease agreement or HR onboarding, insurance claims or legal reviews, compliance workflows, all sorts of workflows that have to do with documents. Now, to allow your users to deal with those documents, you often want to display the document, right? So here, for example, in this app, I can view this NDA agreement, but users often also want to edit them. So for example, I may want to annotate something here, maybe this subtitle here, maybe we need to do something with that, right? Or maybe I want to load a different contract so I can view this other one. And I remember that there was some kind of personal information. So I need to redact that. So if I zoom in a little bit here, right? So I can zoom in, I can hold spacebar to look here. And here I can see there's a personal name. I can draw a rectangle around here. And now this is marked for redaction. So this is basically the review step. But if I approve this, I can actually apply it like that. So now I have redacted that personal information, right? Because there's a lot of, well, privacy regulations. So your users often need to redact something, right? This is just one of many examples of how we may want to edit things in our document. Of course, at some point we may also want to download it. And now you can see I have a new PDF file. If I open this up, I have this PDF file with the changes added here baked in. And maybe I have another PDF file, a lease agreement here. Maybe I need to sign something here. So there is a signature field here at the bottom, but maybe I want to add something here in the top right corner. I can go here to fill and sign. I can draw my signature and then I can add that here somewhere on the document if I want. Right, so here we go. And now I can do Control Z if I want it to be gone again, right? So all sorts of functionalities here so yes, technically you could build this out yourself from scratch, but in the real world, there are so many edge cases that you actually do want to pick from a third-party solution in most cases. So I'm going to use the Apryse Webviewer SDK in this video. I've had a great time setting it up actually and using it in general. So this SDK helps you build out those document workflows in your software. And in this video, we're looking mostly at PDF related functionalities. In the next few videos, however, you'll see that this also works with docx documents as well as spreadsheets. In fact, they support 100 plus formats with this SDK. And I think this is much better than building it out yourself. And yes, I'm partnering with them on the video, but I have a lot of freedom to say what I want. And I think this is just a better option than trying to build it out yourself. There are so many edge cases that you have to take care of in the real world that I think it's better to go with a battle-hardened solution that has already taken care of that for you. Right, so we will see all about this. Now, just to quickly list some of the things that we can do with this, because I know some of you are already on the hunt for a solution like this. Let's see if the things that you're looking for are supported by this. So here, the Webviewer SDK allows you to do the following with PDFs in your app. So of course, users need to view them, but that's only the beginning. They need to edit it, annotate it, flatten, extract, search, right? So if there's a PDF file with 100 pages and they need to search for a name or some phrase, very common, some form related functionalities, calculating using measurements, support layers, customizing the UI. So as you'll see, this component here that you see here on the right, we can customize how it looks and even how it behaves. You can even add a custom action button if you want something like that. So you're not locked into what they offer out of the box. We can customize this in pretty much any way we want. We also have different theme ones, so the look itself can be changed so it fits in nicely into your app. Right, so I've integrated this component into this overall app because I want to show you that you could also have controls outside the component itself. Right, so plenty of customizations available inside the actual component, and you keep the option to also allow the users to interact with it with controls outside the component. Certain accessibility standards built in. We can manipulate pages, compare different versions of a PDF. We have an archive functionality here. We can add a digital signature as we just saw, as well as redact information, generate templates, add security, and even convert documents. So a really expansive set of options here. It was actually easier to set up in my experience than some of the options that you have out there. I find it works really well in a Next.js app, for example, even though Next.js is a little bit more tricky with server-side rendering and so on. But actually it was working perfectly fine right out of the gate. So this allows us to build better document experiences, right? It's just drop in and start building. And they really try to help you out with a complete life cycle of this document workflow. So it's a single complete toolkit that powers the entire document lifecycle for viewing and editing and the advanced intelligence required for modern AI and automation workflows. So we can create a view, edit and manipulate, secure and protect, right? So encryption, watermarking, redaction, extract and automate. So there's OCR, extraction of text, tables and form fields. So if you have some unstructured documents, you can convert that into structured data. And they offer these SDKs not just for React or Next.js, which we will use in the video, but the other common frameworks as well. And they even offer a very generous free trial actually. So I'm using the free trial here. I have all functionalities here I want to use. The only exception is that you do get a watermark here in the documents if you export them. But other than that, you can do pretty much anything here. So you can just go ahead and drop it into your app and play around with it and see if it's a good fit for you. So if you're already curious, make sure to use the link in the description to check it out. We are now going to see how we can set up an app and integrate this from scratch and see how we can add some customization on and basically try to recreate what we have here, where we have controls outside the component, but then we also have the component itself. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Like I said, I'm going to use Next.js in this video, but as you can see in the documentation, they support all these libraries and frameworks as well. But let's see what we can do here with Next.js. First, we have to create a new Next.js project. So I have opened a completely empty folder here inside Visual Studio Code, but you can use any IDE you want. I'm just going to quickly set up a new Next.js app. I'll put all the files and folders directly in this folder, and I will use the recommended defaults. All right, so now I have a brand new Next.js app. I will run it on port 3000 and this is what we have right now. I will delete some of this boilerplate here. So this is now an empty homepage. And as you can see, there's nothing here. All right, so now we want to add this component. Let's continue with that. So we need to install the Webviewer SDK here. We're going to use npm for that. It will install the Webviewer package. So we can use this command npm install pdftron/webviewer. Or if you like using your AI coding agent, of course, you can ask it to do that for you. I like running some of these commands still myself manually. All right, so now that is installed. The next thing is we need to copy over some of those Webviewer assets that are currently installed in the node modules folder. So we're going to create a lib and then Webviewer directory inside the public folder. So by default, Next.js comes with this public folder. It has some static assets. So we want to put it in here. So I'm going to do a new folder. I'm going to paste that path. So lib/Webviewer. And then we need to copy over the Webviewer static asset. So those are in node modules because we just installed that. So here is pdftron. And then here we have Webviewer and here it has public. So basically we need to copy over this. We could do it manually or here in the documentation, they give a command for that. It's actually a little bit easier. So let me copy the command instead. I will close this and I will just run that command. And now if we go back, we can see that in our own public folder, we now have all of these files. So this will allow Webviewer to work properly. Next, we're going to add the actual component itself. We can create a components folder in our app. So here we will create a new folder, components, and then they mention a webviewer.js file. So here they're using plain JavaScript. However, this works with TypeScript as well. And I actually like calling it Apryse or perhaps uppercase, depending on your conventions, Apryse webviewer.tsx. And then here they have some boilerplate code that we can use to get a very simple version of this component on our page. So I will just copy that and I will paste it in here. So this component is just going to return a div here initially. However, you can see that there is a use effect here. So in Next.js, typically things run first on the server side. And this PDF component, we want to run this only on the client side. So what we can do is we can sort of initialize it in a use effect because use effect does not run on the server side, only runs on the client side. So if we import this web viewer here in use effect and then initialize it in here, it will just run on the client side. That's why we have this use effect here. So we import it and then we have this web viewer that we can then use to actually initialize this on the page. So we have to point it to a path where it has the web viewer asset. And then it also needs a license key. Now, like I showed you, they have a very generous free trial. You can use the link in the description and in the dashboard, you can find a key, very easy. Once you've added that here, there is another option here for the initial doc that you want to load when it first mounts on the page. And you can specify an element on the page where the web viewer will be mounted. Right, so here there's a use ref. We can add that to the element here with ref, and then we can specify that right there. So that's basically going to mount it on the page. Now after that, we get access to the actual instance on the page, which we can use to do all sorts of things, all sorts of customizations. But before we do that, let's actually try getting this on the page. So we need to render this somewhere in our app. So I can go to my home page and then actually add this Apryse web viewer component. Let's import that. Now if I save here, this is the home page. If I go back to the home page, let's see. All right, here we go. So now the whole page here is actually taken up by this component. And by default, it's using this PDF file that they have made available just so we can try things out. It has a few pages. And yeah, we can use all of the functionalities here. We can annotate, we can add shapes, we can insert things, text, or even stamps. We can edit things here, fill and sign, forms. We can add comments here if the user is collaborating with other ones. It can do a search here. I can search for world, and it can find all the instances of the word world. Right, and we can even download here by default as well. Okay. So basically most of the functionalities that you would want come here out of the box already. So that's really nice. And my computer is set in dark mode, by the way. So if your computer is in light mode, it may actually render a light theme by default. For me, it's dark here. Okay, so literally in a few minutes now, we have a very powerful PDF component here, well, for viewing, editing, exporting. But in the real world, you often want to customize it to, well, properly integrate it into an existing app. So you can see here, I have changed the layout here a little bit here in the example demo app. So the component itself should be a little bit smaller. We want to have our own controls outside the component as well. And we may want to decide to, well, customize the functionalities here. Maybe you want to disable some features or enable some features, right? Maybe you don't want to allow print. Maybe you don't want to allow annotation, right? So how can we customize this further? Well, let's actually see what we can do here. So if we go back to that component, so when we initialize the web viewer, we actually already get a bunch of options. So just to summarize those, so I'll keep the path here pointing to the WebViewer lib folder. And actually for license key, we may just want to add this to an environment variable. Note that this is a client-side component and this needs to be rendered client-side. So ultimately, this will become, well, publicly exposed. So it's a next public environment variable. For the initial doc, we can also just point to our own PDF files. So you can actually ask your AI coding agent, generate some PDF files just to try things out. So I actually asked it to generate a few, and I've put that here in the public folder here under documents. I have 5 PDF files just so I can try things out. And I'm pointing to that here. So I'm just pointing to an initial one. We can specify extensions. So as you'll see in a different video, it works with other extensions as well. We can specify a file name. So when you download, it needs to name the file. And then there's an option here for full API. So they actually offer a standard API as well as a more advanced full API option here. If you just have basic PDF viewing or maybe some basic editing, you should be able to do that with just a standard basic API. However, for more advanced use cases, they offer a broader set of features essentially. So you may want to enable that with full API. And those advanced options may be enabling annotations or downloading an edited file or exporting a reviewed document. And then we actually already have, you could say, some feature settings here. So I'm enabling redaction here, so users can select sensitive information, for example, and then when they download the file, it's actually removed in the new PDF file. And actually for annotations, you can even specify a user. So when the user leaves annotations, there is a name associated with that. So in this case, it could also just be a role name, basically the contract reviewer person in the app. Right, so those are just some examples of settings, and they actually do use TypeScript. So the benefit is we get some intelligence here. So if you want to see all of the options that we can specify, you can just do Option Escape here on my Mac to see the type options. But just to show you a few and how advanced this can get, well, there is a file picker, enable a measurement, and even something like mobile redirect, right? So this is such an edge case that you would not think about if you were doing this by yourself. Basically, whether the viewer should redirect to a new window or not when loaded on a mobile device. Right? So this is a typical edge case that you would probably not really think about if you would build this from scratch yourself. There's going to be so many edge cases like this in production. So it's really nice that you can configure options like that here out of the box. Right? So there are some other options here for the downloader and backend type, basically having to do with how things should run during runtime. So those are some options for initializing the web viewer. And then once it's rendered on a page, we get access to that instance, and we can further customize the UI here. So for example, you can use instance.ui. The other option here is core. But for UI customizations, we have all of these options. So we can disable certain features, do all sorts of programmatic customization here, like close the tooltip, close document, add a custom modal, disable native scrolling, disable tools, enable certain features again. Right? This basically allows us to programmatically change how the component well, looks, but also behaves actually in terms of features. So as long as we keep a reference to this instance variable, we can use that throughout the app, right? So maybe also with controls outside of the component. So it's a good idea, I think, to put this instance in some kind of ref here in React, right? Or use ref so that you can use this in other components in your app as well. We'll see that in a second. But for now, I can just use set theme, and it comes with this dark theme out of the box here, and also features. So here we can check if the content edit feature exists, and if that's the case, I may want to enable that, right? And then maybe there's a button outside this component, and if the user clicks that, maybe something should happen and it should be disabled, for example. So just some quick examples on how we can further customize this. There's a lot of options, and a lot of that is described here with TypeScript, but also in the documentation. So we're not going to dwell too long on this. But if we go back now, we have this. So it's still taking up the entire page. We can also change that, by the way. So here, of course, I'm using width of 100%. So we may just want to do something like width of 50%, and it should automatically adjust. Now it's only taking up half the page, right? And you can see it's responsive by default. So as it's less wide now, it does actually work nicely here with the panel. So the panels now actually come up from below. That's really useful because in the real world, this component is often part of some bigger workflow. So in this case, we have some kind of contract review portal, but you can imagine if this is some kind of HR onboarding type of software or some kind of invoice approval dashboard. Right? In those apps, we typically do not want to have just one random PDF component floating around on the page. It should be integrated into a broader app UI. So let's actually continue with adding other parts of the UI of the app here to the page and actually properly integrate it with that. So let's actually continue with the code of this demo app that I created. So we have some kind of a sidebar here with our own controls here on the left side, and then the Apryse component here on the right side. So in terms of markup structure, it would work the same as any other app, right? So you would have a React app, or if you're using some other framework, none of that changes. You would have some components for maybe, here the documents section here in the sidebar, and then here we have all these tools. So we have that document section, and then we have those tools. I'm calling it a toolbar, right, or actions. This is all just at the app UI, and then on the right side we have the Apryse Webviewer, right? And we can just use CSS to get the layout that we want. You can use Flexbox. I'm not going to dwell too long on the CSS here. You can just build out the markup and the CSS to look something like this. If you want me to publish this in a GitHub repo, let me know. I'll publish it so you can take a look at it yourself. We don't have the time to go over all the markup and CSS here. Once we have that in place, we can actually do a lot of things here. So for example, here I have documents here, and by default, we're loading this NDA agreement. But if I scroll down here, we have a few other ones as well, like this vendor contract. If I click on that, it actually switches the PDF file that is being displayed here, right? Even though this is a button outside the component. So to use a click one of these items here in this documents list, we're basically just keeping track of the currently selected document in use state. And that can be the URL of the PDF, right? Or in this case, like /documents/vendor contract, because it's just a local file. So there would just be a state change, and we can react to that with a use effect, right? Just traditional React here. And as long as we have access to that instance variable, right? So as we initialize it, we keep track of that in some ref. And as long as we have that instance variable, we can manipulate it. So one of the things that we can do here is with the .core option in this case, not UI, but the other one, we can also do load document. And we just specify the URL, and we have a bunch of those options again. And that's how you can programmatically switch between these documents. So there's another one, lease agreement, right? So very smooth and fast way of switching programmatically. And if I click on vendor, all the built-in options still work. So I can still move around here. I can still leave comments here. I can search for account, and here it finds two instances. Actually nicely centers the view in here as well. I can add annotations right here, update here. I can actually then also download this. And if I open this up, we see the annotation here baked in. Right, so all the built-in features continue to work. It's just that now we can also control this outside the built-in controls. So we can use the built-in controls, of course, but because we have access to that instance variable, we can also create controls here in our app UI. So instead of doing the search like that, I can also do a button. I can also create a button like search confidential. You can see when I click on that, it programmatically opens up this panel here and search adds the confidential text here in the input field and searches for that. This is very important for actually integrating it into your app. So we can also do things like search for account number. Well, there's nothing here, but maybe in this one, If I search for account number, yeah, there are 2 matches here. Effective date, well, maybe for the other one, effective date. And we have other actions in this toolbar. We can edit text. So if you click on that, it actually opens up the edit text panel here and automatically basically divides up the sections here for editing the text. So if I double click, I can actually edit here, right? So here, if I just want effective date, I can just edit it like that. I can even change the font here. I can make this something else, make it much bigger even, right? It looks terrible, of course, just as an example. I can also click on highlight text. So if I then want to highlight that text, I can do like this, even fill and sign. So if I want to add a signature here, I can draw a beautiful signature here, create it like that, add this here on the document like that. If I want to redact some information, maybe I do want to redact, I don't know, the date for some reason, I can just do it like that and then even apply it, right? For my own app UI control, I can click on apply and now you can see this has been redacted. And then if I want to download it, I can do that here, right? So here, download with the built-in control or with download PDF from my own app UI. If I open this up, you can see I get this new PDF file with all of those edits baked in. Right, so really amazing how sophisticated this can get. And it's literally just a few lines of code. And you can get very far with the AI coding agent. I find that the AI coding agent is actually really good at picking up the Apryse SDK here. It's actually really amazing how few errors I ran into. Right, even rotate the page, right, all sorts of things, as long as you have access to that instance variable. Those actions all work from that instance variable, right? So here if I have the instance variable, you have the core, gives you access to document viewer. One of the methods we can call on that is rotate clockwise, right? So that's how you can rotate. The instance core also gives you access to the annotations, right? So there's something called an annotation manager, and this helps you with the we can then use the redactions and then even use the apply redactions method. Or as we saw, we can sort of open up the tool for the user. In this case, we can just put it in a particular tool mode. This can be the highlighting tool, for example. Right, so in this video, we're just scratching the surface here. There are so many options, there are so many customizations available. So for most of the workflows that you could possibly have, you should be able to integrate it very nicely into your app. So I highly recommend you check out the Apryse SDK here. You can find a link in the description. I had a great time using it. Very easy to set up, very generous free trial here. And in the next few videos, we're going to look at some other document formats as well, like docx and spreadsheet. So it's not just for PDF files, although that is probably a major use case for you. So make sure to check out the other videos as well. But for now, you can already check it out with the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.